Hey viewers, and in today's video we're going to be doing the baseline grid for the web in Figma. My name is Roy, I'm a web designer. If you do find the content useful, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and let's get into the video. Okay, so for today's task, what we're going to do is create a very simple blog post page with a baseline grid. We're going to make it responsive. What we're also going to do is the aim is to break. So we're going to test it out, and then we're also going to introduce images, and this is probably where we're going to break the baseline grid, because when it's responsive it's not always going to be perfectly on the 8-point grid. But we'll see if there is a solution, but I don't think there is, but there might be. But anyway, let's get into the video. So what we're going to do from yesterday, we are just going to copy this, which is what we did yesterday. And if you haven't done this video, please check out yesterday's video. I'll leave a link in the description. So if I copy this and we go back to part 2, and what we're going to do is we're going to quickly paste, and in here we are just going to show you something. So yesterday, again, you can see here the bottom of this text is not aligning with this line, but these are aligning perfectly, and actually not perfectly, as you can see. So the reason behind that is because you're not actually measuring, you're not actually looking at the bottom of this text, you're actually looking at the whole height of the text frame, as you can see here. So this height is 56. So you can see here now, this is lining up. This is something that was actually bothering me like crazy. So remember, it's not the bottom of the text, it's actually the whole height of the text and the line of that. So now you can see that it is lining up. So just as an example, I'm going to convert this into a auto layout just so you can visibly see this. So Shift A, we're going to get rid of all the spacing. I'm going to fill that. Let's say we fill that with a very, let's say B. Okay. So now you can see quite clearly that that this is lining up, right? So I'm going to copy that over. Contrast is not great, right? So let's say C. Okay. E. Okay, let's go back to D. Okay, so what we do here is then we'll do Shift A as well. We'll get rid of the spacing there, and this is just to show you how this all lines up. So again, here you can see that it's lining up perfectly, and if we go to this one, we just use Shift A. This is the second heading, and we fill that with the same thing, and you can see again that this is just starting to line up very, very nicely. Okay, so let's check out the small text, and if we Shift A, we get rid of all the spacing, we fill it with DDD, and even that is also lining up very nicely. Okay, so it's a very simple thing that when I started, I thought, oh, it has to, this bottom of the text has to align with the line, but no, it's the whole height of the text frame. And now you can see why the 8-point grid is actually pretty cool, because when you start using multiples of 8, then everything is going to line up very, very nicely. Okay, so that is a very simple thing that might not be so obvious on the eye. Okay, so the next thing to do is responsive. Okay, so for example, if I was to do that, you can see it's not responsive. So a quick thing to do is we have to make sure that every frame in here is going to be fill container. Okay, so fill container and fill container, and if we try again, we go to this main thing, let's call that container, and we are going to test it again. You can see some of them are not fluid, and that's probably because we created auto layouts for those as well. So we also have to make sure we fill container for those. So fill container, this one should, all of them really should be fill container. These are fill, that is hug, let's say just that's fill. Okay, so again, if we were to reduce that, some of them is not, and the reason why, this is really why it's good to test it out. So you can see here, if I just leave it like that, this whole text frame needs to also be fill container. Everything needs to be fill container. So if I go right in, double click a couple of times, fill container. Now if we do the whole fluid thing, now we can see it works. So make sure that everything is fill container. Okay, now the other challenge is, if I then reduce this, you can see that it's not really lining up with the column grid. Okay, so if I go back to 1440, the way we do that is we have to hold shift down, you go to constraints and resizing, and you click on there, left and right. So now what will happen is, if you do that, now it is perfectly, it's just fixed. So it's fluid, so it works. The only thing is that if you go right down, you're going to have a different grid and a different frame to show it in mobile, for example. But we're just showing you quickly how to make sure that it adapts. Okay, so we've done responsive, we've done the baseline grid. Now the next thing to do is to start introducing some images, and this is where it's going to go absolutely crazy, right? So let me just go in here, and I'm just going to very quickly remove, well, let's leave them in for now. Okay, so the images I'm going to use, I just got a bunch from Unsplash, and what we're going to use today is we're going to use animals and pets. So I'm going to drag, let's say, well, actually the way we're going to do it is a bit different. So I'm going to hit the F key, and hero images are normally from the top, and again we're using the grid. Okay, so if I just drag that down, so this one here, we can, again, there's the normal thing where you just line this up in the middle. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this go all the way to the edge, make it bleed, just have something different, right? Not everything has to be always centered. Now if I just move that over just to see how that looks, yeah, no, just keep it, let's keep it back where it was. Okay, so the height, again, this is where it's going to be difficult to align things perfectly, because the height of the image can be quite, it can be random depending on how you're getting your images, or if you make sure that the height of the images are the same, but you'll see in a minute. So here I can just say, okay, let's say that the hero image is at around 256. Okay, so it's quite wide and it's wide and short height. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to go to fill, and we are going to choose a image, and let's find that one again. So if I go to animals, and then the one I want to use is this one here from Unsplash, and we just wait for that to go in. Okay, so probably we're going to make this one probably a bit taller. So let's say, okay, let's say around 344. So the only issue now is, because this is not in the auto layout, you can see now that it is not really going to play nicely. I'm just thinking now, you could actually balance it like that. We leave it like that for now. This one, maybe we could just bring it in. Okay, yeah, let's keep it simple, right? So what we're doing now, we got the main hero image, and here we are then going to make sure that things line up. So this is why spacing is quite important. Again, we're using the vertical grid to make sure it falls in the correct number. Here we need to bring all of these down, right? The whole container. And again, let's say the gap of that is 40, straight away the 8-point grid. So now you can see it's still lining up pretty nicely. Okay. Now the difference is that these two are two separate frames, okay? Or one is a container. They're not in the same container, so things are definitely going to break. So for example, if I do this, you're going to see that, okay, well, it doesn't break. Interesting. Command Z that. It really should break. So if I hold shift and click on right, okay, so let's see if the hero is going to be fluid. Okay, great, it is fluid. Wonderful. And the reason why, this is amazing, right? So you can still see that it is vertically aligning nicely. Okay, it hasn't broken, and I really thought it would. But probably the reason why is because I've set the height. I've given it a height of 344, which is fixed. It's not changing. So you imagine that if this height of the image is actually fluid, if it does vary percentage-wise, then this is going to be off. Okay, but luckily, because we have a fixed height, it is still aligning perfectly. I mean, that is pretty amazing, right? So the next step is, okay, so we've combined that frame. That is pretty simple though, that is the hero image, but now we're going to bring in some images into the content, okay? And this is probably the hard bit. So what we're going to try and do now is we are going to go in and let's bring in some other ones. So if I hit the F key, I'm going to say let's bring in an image in here, and let's say that image is, the thing is we can't go outside now. So if I even force it, if I force it, does that work? Interesting. So here I'm trying to go up to the grid, and is that 678? Okay, 678. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So the height, I immediately know it's not in the right number. So here I'm going to say 152. Okay. And we're also going to feel that. Actually surprising myself today. Thought it's not gonna work, but it actually is working as long as you have a fixed height. So again, I'm just going through some of these pictures, amazing pictures from Unsplash. Those eyes are amazing. So I'm going to get this one, and you can see there. Wow. Okay. So let's now increase that. So let's see how this reacts. Okay. Let's see how this reacts. Okay, so that obviously is not going to work. So again, we have to go into this frame and do the same thing, right? We have, but the resizing doesn't work. If I say fill container, yeah. So if I say fill container, now it will work. So if I go like this, again, yep, that is lining up pretty nicely. Let me just check. So this, I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to get rid of all the spacing. All the spacing, I'm going to fill that with all the D's. And you can see there that is filling up nicely, okay? And the gap between everything from the container is 40 pixels. So things are still lining up very nicely, okay? We might as well just show it on this one as well. Get rid of everything there. Make sure we fill container. Make sure we fill it with all the D's. That should fill container. Okay. And let's just do it on all of them. Shift A, remove just to be sure. And here we go to all the D's. Okay. Wow. That's pretty quick, right? So interesting. Okay. Okay, that is very, very interesting. So again, let's test this out. If I go here, okay, so something went a bit crazy. Let's see why. So something in here, I'm assuming is not filling container. So you just have to make sure we fill container on the ones that we just tweaked. And now let's see if that works. and it's not working because we probably have to go into these text styles and make sure they are fill container. Okay, so now it is definitely working. Okay, that is very, very sweet indeed. And we can still see it's aligning to the grid. I mean, that's amazing, right? So the next step from that, I guess, is let's just add 2 images. Okay, so we are just going to hit the F key again. Let's go in here as an example. 2 images. The only thing is that the way the grid is that it's a bit hard to add 2 images. Okay, so, and I'll show you why, because here you'd expect it to go there. So what we're going to do, just for this as an example, we are going, I'm just thinking out loud now, we are going to stretch this to be that full width. Okay, so the measure is pretty long. It's definitely pretty long. So maybe this should actually be more, maybe it should be more than the 6-column grid, right? But let's just keep it simple for now, and let's just see how this works with 2 images. So that is a width of 396, and then the height, again the height has to be fixed, so you can see straight away how that affects everything below. So 160. Okay, let's make this tall. So 274, and we are going to duplicate that frame, but we have to actually put 2 of these into an auto layout. So Shift A, we're going to make it go next to each other with a gap of 40, and we have to make sure that fill container. And then with these, let's get in some images. So go here and we go to image, choose, and let's see, okay, let's get the owl. Okay, and then we got one here, and let's get the other one, which is image, and we go to, nah, that's pretty nice, that one. We've got too many cats. Okay, let's choose another one. We love cats. Go here, and ooh, no, not going to play around with, yes, the pigeon. Okay, that looks pretty cool. Okay, so we've got 2 images. Let me quickly hide the grid. So control, oh, actually not, let's test this out. So we want this, let's just make this on the last row. Let's see if this is responsive. Okay, nice. But apart from this one, so we have to check why. This has to be fill, and this also has to be fill. And then if we go here, and now we can see it is being responsive. I mean, that is pretty nice. And the height of that remains fixed. So, wow, yeah, so if I get rid of, if I do Control G, shame I can't hide these all together. But yeah, so we managed to solve this in under 20 minutes. And the difference is that you have to make, the only thing is you have to make sure that the heights of these have a set height, and then it will align perfectly. Okay, and then there will be situations where you can't have a fixed height. I'm trying to think, there will be when the content varies or the images varies in heights. So I'm pretty sure you'll find ways to break it. But let's say that we were to tweak this design to make it a bit better in terms of the measure, because it's too wide. So I'm thinking, okay, so let's try and get rid of all these grey. Is there a quick way of doing this? So if I go to that, let's just say white. Okay, so that was quite a quick way of doing it. And let's just Command D that, and then Control G to bring back the grid. So the issue here is the measure is just too long. I mean, it's not too bad, but it's still quite wide. So what I'm proposing is we could either go, I mean, the simple solution is to go like this. I mean, that works as well, doesn't it? Yeah, that does work. So that was just reducing the measure, and let's see if it's still, yeah, cool. So again, let's not forget about mobile. So again, we're keeping it simple. We've done a desktop version. Let's think about a mobile version, okay? So if I command D that, and let's bring that right down to iPhone X, okay? So you can see that everything actually goes crazy. And the reason why is because the columns are not going to work. Why are they not going to work? Because of the gutters and the margins. So let's say that the margin on the left and the right is 16 and the gutter is 16. But now, because we're not going to have so many columns, normally it's just going to be one column. Or you can even say two columns, because we do have some images, but let's keep it simple. One column, because normally on mobile everything stacks because you hardly got any space, okay? So we just adapted the grid to a mobile, and all we're going to do, we're just going to stretch things out. And here again, we're going to stretch that out as well. Here we can just hit this, I think, yep, that'll bring everything. And the things we have to do now is actually, yeah, we wanted it to align there. So we don't want it to be right to the edge, but the hero could be right to the edge. So if I get rid of Control G, okay, and let's see how that works. So if I oh yes, wonderful, okay, that works out pretty nicely. So even these images, because they're stacked, I mean, because they're horizontal, they still work. But realistically, unless you plan for these images to be tall, it's probably not going to work. So we just have to tweak it and say, let's let them stack. And then when we did that, it all went a bit crazy because we got fixed heights on these. So if I was to say fill container and fill container, but the heights of these have to change because they're just way too short. So again, if I zoom in, Control G, so these heights are going to have to be way taller. Let's say 300 or 192. Okay, this one 192. But this time the whole frame, which you could name to Cole, that needs to be, let's say hard content. Let's see what happens. Nice. So you can see there, it's lining up pretty nicely. So again, let's just very quickly test that out, and you can see it's fluid on mobile, and we created our desktop version. So again, let's go Control G just to hide the grid. And yeah, we actually achieved it. I'm sure there's a million ways of breaking the vertical grid, and there will be lots of cases where you have to, but this is a very good starting point. And here we tested it out. We have a hero image, we have one image here, we got 2 column images. Here we played around with the measure, so we used the grid, and now we then designed a mobile version very quickly. And from what I know, there's so many ways of breaking this. For example, having this and this as one auto layout, but that's probably when you're just going down a rabbit hole. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.